Hello and welcome to week 13 of the Punt Return podcast. I'm Josh Wire. As always, joined by Nick Splitter and James Rosewan. Gents, how are we?
Good, mate. It's really interesting. I was just saying to you guys off air that for the first time since mid-season last season, the Stats Insider model has a favourite for the Super Bowl that isn't the New England Patriots. So that's pretty interesting.
And I'm sure James will tell us who the new favourite is from the Stats Insider model for the Super Bowl.
The new favourite is the Baltimore Ravens.
Who Nick, on the podcast last week, pounded the table for them to be labelled the best team in the NFL, and he was justified by that. They played very much like that.
Went out on a limb, that one.
Yeah, it did. Well, I mean, it's...
Yeah, it was. It was a good call.
This is the first week ever that the Pats aren't number one in my ratings this week.
There you go.
The Ravens, a lot of it is preseason ratings, so it took 13 weeks for a team to really... And the Pats still won last week and still played fine. Their defense played well, but the Ravens won so convincingly that I had to adjust accordingly, and now the Ravens are the slight number one team. But it is Thanksgiving. Many say the NFL season doesn't actually start until Thanksgiving. So if this is the case, buckle up, because the race to the finish line begins now, and suddenly the AFC's looking a lot more interesting than it was, say, 5 weeks ago. So for Thanksgiving, I thought we'd say what we're thankful for. And Nick, why don't you kickstart us?
Yeah, incredible quarterbacks. We've been spoiled over the last kind of 10 to 20 years with some of the greatest ever quarterbacks to play NFL football. You know, look at the likes of Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. And then you've got a second tier level with Big Ben, Matt Ryan, Phil Rivers, Stafford, etc. But I feel like this golden era of quarterbacks is going into beast mode. We've now got Russell Wilson, MVP candidate, Patrick Mahomes, last year's MVP winner, Deshaun Watson, MVP candidate, Lamar Jackson, MVP favorite, Dak Prescott's playing incredible football. And there are a couple of others that are kind of on the cusp of that sort of level. And we're just really lucky that we get to see incredible quarterback play kind of from MVP contenders each and every week.
And different quarterback play. It's, you know, the Manning, Brady, Rodgers, Brees all played a very similar style. Obviously, Rodgers probably, in terms of just arm strength and pure ability, probably, you know, a little bit different in kind of the meld between the old and the new, but the way that these new guys are playing it is, it's pretty fun. It's a good one. I like it. What do you got for us, James?
I'm thankful for a fat, bearded man from New Jersey called Greg Roman. And I'm thankful for him for proving that in life, as in sport, or sport as in life, there's multiple ways to succeed. Now, this is to do with, you know, this analytics debate regarding running the ball, passing the ball, which, as much as I love analytics, I truly do, to the bottom of my heart. I write for a company that uses it intently. I've gambled and made a living out of it. This whole thing that's happening with Lamar Jackson, this whole thing that's happening in Baltimore, is making that debate seem a little bit sort of off kilter. Because there's no way you can tell me that this is a team that should be throwing the ball significantly more. And I love the way that they've accommodated this kind of peculiar quarterback who this could very much have not happened, this whole Lamar Jackson thing, in 28, 27 other franchises. So I just think it's this perfect storm in Baltimore that is quite a kind of comforting experience that you can win multiple ways. There's not one way to win. And I think that's across the board in all sports. And so, yeah, I'm thankful for that.
Okay. Well, I'll touch on the Ravens in a little bit when we took our biggest takeaways from week 12. I'm just thankful for Frank Reich and good coaching after the week that we've seen from Jason Garrett and the way he botched, you know, that game against the Pats for the Cowboys and some other bad coaches. I'm just thankful for Frank Reich. I know, you know, the Colts lost last week, but that wasn't his fault, and I'll get to that a little bit later on as well. I'm just thankful for a guy that's willing to take chances on fourth down and embrace analytics and all that sort of stuff. So I'm thankful for Frank. You know, in a rough year where your quarterback retires a week before the season starts, it's still been an enjoyable year, and I think that's a lot of that is on Frank Reich. So I'm thankful for Frank Reich.
Can we have him back now?
No, you absolutely cannot. You absolutely cannot. I mean, yeah, maybe. Actually, no, I don't want Carson Wentz. We'll get to that in a little bit. Let's talk biggest takeaways from week 12, and then we'll double back to our results. So, you touched on Greg Roman and the Ravens. I think John Harbaugh is now the coach of the year favorite for me. Just the whole way that he just trusts Lamar and the way that he goes for it on fourth down so often. The 4th and 9 call to go for it in that game, pedal to the metal, knife to the throat, just let your opponent bleed out. It was body shot after body shot, just methodical stuff. And it all starts up top. And they're so strong in all three facets of the game. And I really like the idea of having a head coach as a special teams background. I just think they understand the game better, and you get your coordinators in to trust offense and defense, and then he can oversee the whole operation and still be in charge of special teams. They have the greatest kicker of all time, and now he's just a PAT specialist because he's like, no, we're going for it on fourth down every time. You have a great punter as well. No, screw punting. So I like John Harbaugh. I think he's coach of the year at the moment, and part of that is also to do with Greg Roman, which you touched on before, James. But any takeaways from you, Nick, from week 12?
Yeah, mine is just the question, is this MVP race still open? You know, all season there's been 5 or 6 legitimate chances at any point in time to win the NFL MVP. But is it now a fait accompli? Is it a one-horse race? Is Lamar Jackson the man, and is it immoral now? You know, it's $1.50 at most books. It's very short. Is he immoral? I'm not sure that he is, but he must be getting very close.
I still think Russell Wilson. I still think it's a 2-horse race. It's Russell versus Lamar.
I think Lamar is just ahead of Russell at the moment, but you know, so much can change in another 6 weeks of football.
Exactly.
And guys, just before mine, I just want to touch again on that John Harbaugh point. There was a really excellent article in Athletic about 2 weeks ago by Shil Kapadia. If you look it up, Analytical Edge, and it was how John Harbaugh embraces analytics within the Ravens. And it speaks to this idea of him, like you said, in terms of whether it's Greg Roman or even on defense with Martindale, he really, really sort of empowers his assistants. And it's that whole franchise vibe there. So
he was on the hot seat a year ago, which was just ridiculous. I think he's the second best coach in the entire league. I'm out on Sean McVay a little bit. I think Harbaugh is it for me, like behind Belichick.
Yeah, and I'd go with Harbaugh as well because it's not, as you said, it's not one side of the football with him. It's the whole all-encompassing. They've been great on special teams for about 10 years as well anyway, so.
Exactly.
In addition to with all of that. My take from last week was just in terms of we're running out of playoff positions. That Buffalo win means they're really only one win away from getting that sort of, that 9 wins, which should be enough, which means there's probably only one wild card spot in the AFC. And so maybe 3 or 4 teams playing for that one wild spot and then wild card spot. And then the NFC looks like it's all going to come down to Philly or Dallas for that other spot, considering the Rams look like they're out of the race. So they've sort of closed the door on those being big, wide open races, which they were even a couple of weeks ago. So
yeah, I think Seattle and San Fran and Green Bay and Minnesota have locked up those wild card division winner slots at this point. Although, the season starts now apparently, so we'll wait and see. Week 12 results. We went 2 locks last week. We went double lock. We bolted down. So we had 2 locks on the week, 2-0. Baltimore -3. That easily lobbed as Baltimore just steam in for the win against the Rams. And Cincinnati and Pittsburgh under 39.5. Never looked like going over. Both lobbed. We're now 9-3-1 on the season on our locks. Which is pretty impressive given that all 3 of us have to agree on something. So good job by all of us. And Nick, talk us through long shots.
No good for me last week. Alvin Kamara let me down, as did the rest of the Saints. I think I had them -8.5 as well, and that kind of failed for me. So the Saints let me down in a couple of ways.
Yep. I no good for me. Derek Carr and the Raiders laid an absolute egg. I'll touch on that a little bit later on. 300 passing yards. I don't think he went even remotely close, so that was terrible. But, they're long shots for a reason. We'll never forget Nick's 8-4 long shot run or whatever it was to start the first 12 weeks of the season. It's pretty good. And then James, obviously Seattle still very much in that tight division race with San Fran, so that price is still floating around a little bit. Yeah,
I think it's around 275.3 now, and they're still thinking you get about 8 for the conference, so. Still like Seattle.
Yep. Best bets last week, 2-1. Since he hung on by the slimmest of margins, got absolutely blessed there. But then I also kind of got a bit unlucky with New England. They probably should have kicked the field goal with 5 seconds left instead of just throwing it out of bounds and giving Dallas 1 second left to win the game. So, it was okay. And then the total was the Jacksonville, Tennessee total that went over. So I'm 22-12-2 on the season. Nick, you had your first losing week since week 2, so that's an amazing run for giving 3 plays a week. It's pretty crazy.
I had a shocker. I was very confident last week on a couple of plays that both failed, as I mentioned the Saints before, and I was also pretty confident on the Falcons after their.
I told you, trap game of the week.
Yeah, they're kind of their 2 week renaissance, and they failed me too. But
Yep.
Yeah, look, it's bound to happen sometimes.
And James, 0-3, your weekly runs over. So are you back to futures, or what's the scenario?
It's always been futures. That's been the bedrock of the enterprise.
Okay.
However, it's an example when you get involved with the Detroits and Oaklands of the world. This is what happens. So,
yeah.
But really happy to be involved in that. My debut of the unders plays in that Cincy Pittsburgh game. So that was good too.
Yeah, exactly. You were in on that as well. So credit to it. So yeah, it was a mixed result. I mean, lock of the week going 2-0 is fantastic. So it's still good results from the pod. And the model did pretty well last week. I think 2-1, and the Tampa Bay money line they tipped up. So if you faded the man and went the machine, you probably did okay overall. But yeah, the lock of the week's just flying at this point. So let's get straight into it. Week 13, Thanksgiving week. So we got 3 Friday games. The first one starting at 4 a.m. Normally I'm like so keen to get up for Thanksgiving, but this is David Blau versus Mitch Trubisky. This is a bad game. I feel sorry for Detroit. It's not a good scenario there for them. But the Lions, they're 5-16 against the spread in their last 21 Thursday games, most of which have occurred on Thanksgiving and in the Motor City. So they've dropped their past 2 Thanksgiving gigs straight up. Now they're without Matt Stafford. Look, the Bears didn't look great against the Giants. Plenty of mistakes, but still some positive plays. But the Lions' defense has been absolutely terrible. So at least the Bears have something. They're ranked 4th in points per game, net yards per pass attempt, and yards per rush. But now with David Blau in a quarterback and that line moving up to 4.5, the total's 37. I didn't even mention that. Chicago are favourites. I'm going to pass on this game. I'm going to fade it. I'm probably not going to watch it at all. Which is saying something. But these two teams are not going to feature in the postseason.
This is a horrible game for a Thanksgiving Thursday night kind of early prime time matchup. It's 2 of the more depressing franchises this season. Like you said, zero reason to get up and watch this one. It's a complete pass from me.
Yeah, Lions are like running into the sort of an old friend you run into once a year, and you see that they still haven't kicked their drug problem. And this is kind of what is on Thanksgiving with Detroit. It's that reminder of how far away they are from contention and how long it's been like this. So, no play for me on this particular game. It's 2 teams with really big off-season questions regarding quarterback, GM, who will be coaching these 2 teams next year. So, and I completely agree. It's not something I'm desperate to wake up and watch.
Okay, let's move on to the second Thanksgiving game. Buffalo at Dallas. Dallas 6.5-point favorites. The total is 46.5. Here's the list of quarterbacks that the elite Buffalo defense has faced this year. Brandon Allen, who's horrible. Ryan Fitzpatrick, who had 323 yards against them. Baker Mayfield, who threw 2 touchdowns. Chubb had 100+ on the ground. Dwayne Haskins, horrible. Wentz, are we sure he's good? They won 31-13. Fitz again. Mariota, who got benched. Brady, who's turning to dust. Andy Dalton, who was benched. Eli benched. And Darnold when he had mono. This is definitely the hardest quarterback they're going to face. Dallas back at home, out of the elements. No rain and wind. This is the toughest thing that the Bills are going to face all season so far. I expect the Cowboys, and in particular the Clapper, to come out guns blazing after the Furo this week over his obvious limitations as a head coach. And I just don't think Josh Allen's accurate enough or methodical enough to take advantage of Dallas's, obvious shortcomings on defense. So, I'm expecting plenty of Allen rushing yards, actually. I think he's going to, not see any open reads and just take it and run. And I lean Dallas 6.5. I'm not overly keen. It's not a huge play for me, but, I lean Dallas minus 6.5. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I feel like Dallas really need a win here. That they've had chances to, really take control of that top spot in the NFC East, which they absolutely deserve to be at the top of that division because they have been the best team. But they've dropped a couple of winnable games, mainly against the Vikings and the Jets, but also to the Pats last week, over the last 6 weeks, which has kind of kept the door slightly ajar for the Eagles. And Philly have a more favorable run home. So that question mark is still there on Dallas. And I think they're going to be gunning for a big win. They should be way too strong at home. And Buffalo's vaunted defense, we've talked about it a number of times. It's been good, but like you said, against what opposition? They've actually regressed defensively in the last month. They're back to 10th in DVOA defense after being top 5 for most of the first half of the year. And I think their record is inflated based on that weak schedule that you've already mentioned, and some luck with opposition form and injury and whatnot. So I actually do think it's a quite a strong play, Dallas -6.5.
Yeah, 26 in DVOA run D as well, which bodes well for Zeke. Are we all across the board here, James, or what are you feeling?
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with you guys. Buffalo has sort of succeeded this year when they've come up, like we spoke about last week, when they've come up against those really bland offenses that don't make Buffalo's offense themselves have to do much. So lots of noise last week about the Pats falling short against Dallas falling short against the Pats, and it came down to those micromanagement issues which we all forecast as well. Dallas are a top 5 team in the NFL, both ATS and straight up, coming off a loss in the Dak Zeke era. So there's a couple of positive signs that not only will they win this game, but they should be able to cover the line as well.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to the third Thanksgiving game. New Orleans -6.5 on the road at Atlanta. Total is 48.5. This is a pass for me. I'm a bit worried about the Saints' offensive line. They allowed 12 sacks through their first 8 games. Drew Brees has been hit 11 times and sacked 6 times against the Falcons back in Week 10. So this isn't the best time for the New Orleans the O-line to even get more banged up with Terron Armstead out with a high ankle sprain, and they're already missing Andres Pete with a broken arm as well. Marshawn Lattimore questionable. If he's out as well, that's a massive loss. He does so much for that secondary. I think he will be back, so that kind of helps shut down Julio Jones. But I just don't know how you can trust this Saints team to cover 7 points on the road in a division game against a good quarterback. As bad as the Falcons are overall and last week, and that Renaissance may have been just a mirage, I'm not taking the Saints to win by a touchdown on the road in a division game on Thanksgiving on a short week. I'll pass completely on this.
Well, you mentioned Lattimore. There's question marks on Julio Jones even suiting up as well. And I think they've already said that's going to be a kind of a game time decision. But it is a really interesting matchup, as you said. The Falcons were so disappointing last week after that mini renaissance. Their defense, which had been completely up and about for a couple of weeks before that, regressed back to, the first 10 weeks of the season. No sacks on Jameis Winston, facing a below average offensive line. They did force 2 interceptions, but when you lose by 13 at home, who cares whether you force interceptions or not? The Saints got the win last week, but they failed to do so in the style that I was expecting against the Panthers. And I feel like this is a bit of a revenge game for the Saints, who the Falcons taught them a bit of a lesson last time around in New Orleans. And like I said, it did seem like the beginning of the rebirth of the Falcons in terms of NFL relevance again, but that looks to have been a bit of a false dawn. I'm backing the Saints to get back on track and get that revenge this week. Saints -6.5.
I think the Saints will win, but those couple of injuries on the offensive line concern me, so which might make the line a little bit questionable. Also worrying signs for the Saints is their D. Given up last 3 consecutive weeks, 20 plus first downs, 300 plus yards in those 3 straight games, all against 3 teams who aren't going to the playoffs themselves, which is the kind of form that's not going to cut it in the postseason quite clearly. Just 3 multi-turnover games for the defense this season so far. They had 7 at this stage last year. So yeah, it's not going to be great taking Lattimore out of the equation either. Didn't mind the form Kamara was getting in too late after worrying about him and the whole Saints structure for 3 quarters when he looked like Kamara was on another planet. So that's going to be huge to give them another weapon outside of Michael Thomas. But yeah, this is a curious little phase the Saints are going through at the moment, because I think we all said last week that maybe the peak of the NFC, and they're starting to have a couple of little queries.
Yeah, I mean, they even got lucky against the Panthers. They missed 2 extra points and a field goal. So, you could make the case that the Panthers probably should have won that game. So, they got a little bit lucky there, but that's the NFL. But, look, the Saints are a much better team, but yeah, just short week. Just don't know about that. That does reek of a little bit of a trap game scenario there. It's not my trap game of the week yet, though. Oh.
I think just on Michael Thomas as well, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that he is on track to break the record for most receptions in a season.
He's the smoothest wide receiver I've ever seen.
He is amazing.
He's so smooth. Like
he makes everything look so easy.
He glides. Like he just seems to float. I don't know what it is about him.
And like,
magic.
Yeah. And like all sort of, great artists or great receivers, he does something quite different than what we've been accustomed to with Julio Jones or Antonio Brown or DeAndre Hopkins in recent years. And it's something different as well, which is wonderful to sort of see.
Yeah, a radio show, the Lebetide show, Stu Gotts on there just says that he imagines Michael Thomas would just be the greatest lover because he's just so smooth.
Okay.
And I can't disagree with that. I mean, it makes complete sense. Anyway, Green Bay minus 6.5 at the Giants. The total is 45.5. I got no real feel or thoughts on this game at all, really. Packers are one of the hardest teams in the NFL to really understand for me. Their defense is well overrated. And their offense has kind of regressed a little bit since Devontae Adams returned. Ian Kenyon, he's like a Packers kind of beat writer. He used to write for Bleacher Report. Before they turned into just a joke of a place. He has a potential Ewing theory on Devontae Adams. He thinks that maybe tries to force feed it to Devontae too much, and when he's out, he just seems to spread the ball around more, and it seems to just flow better, which is something interesting. I want to look into that when I have a little bit more time, and I need a bit more sample size. But that's definitely something to consider. But yeah, I think Green Bay will win, but I'm not overly confident they'll cover the spread at all. I don't know about the Giants. Daniel Jones, he continues to fumble the ball. He's got to lock that down. I mentioned interceptions are overrated last week. I think we should start looking at turnovers as a whole. I mean, fumbles are just as bad as interceptions. At least with arm punts, you're throwing it 50 yards down the field. But DJ's giving it up a lot, so yeah, that could probably be the difference there, whether there's a fumble return touchdown or something. But I'm going to pass on that.
The Packers were really disappointing last week in San Francisco, but still, as of right now, they're third seed in the NFC and one of a number of NFC teams with a realistic eye on a Super Bowl berth. And these games, they just have to win them to be taken seriously, to be legitimate. The Giants are ranked 29th in overall DVOA, 25th on offense, 27th on defense. They can't really do anything well at the moment. I mean, you look at Saquon Barkley, he is elite, but he doesn't look like it at the moment.
You're right. What do they do well? They don't do anything
They don't do anything. They don't do anything.
At least other bad teams have something they can hang their hat on, like the Bears have great defense. But you're right.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their last 5 weeks, punctuated by losses to the Bears, the Jets, the Cowboys, the Lions, and the Cards. The Cowboys are the only team in that stretch that you could say are any good at much at all. I mean, the Bears, like you said, the Bears are pretty good at defense. Jets are pretty good at defense. The Lions and the Cardinals are not much in anything. And so, yeah, they're a very mediocre franchise at the moment, the Giants. But the Packers are ranked 10th overall DVOA, 7th on offense, but there are still concerns on defense, I think, as you mentioned. And if Barkley can get back to how we think that he should be and how we know that he can be, the Giants could be a chance, but he just doesn't look fit, or he doesn't look interested. I'm on the Packers train to bounce back this week.
Yeah, that Packers D is really, really concerning as well. It shriveled up to the 22nd ranked in the NFL in recent weeks when they were showing signs of promise early in the year, getting a little bit of pass rush going as well. It's a good thing they're running into the Giants because seriously, they don't look like a playoff team at the moment. They look vulnerable all over the place. And the offense is out of sync. I don't know if they know what kind of role they want Aaron Jones to be playing. So, yeah, really concerning. However, as we said, this is a really good spot for them in a must-win game and a couple of really encouraging ATS trends for Rodgers and Green Bay. Over the last 10 years, they've been the definitive best team in the league covering as a road favourite rather. 49-28, that's a 63% cover rate in this situation. And in that same time span, the Giants are covering as a home dog at 36.7%, which is in the bottom 5 in the league. So you've got one team who does it really well and the other team in a horrible situation here, which is a good omen for a Green Bay cover.
Okay, let's move on to Philly minus 9.5 at Miami. Total is 45. Philadelphia hasn't scored more than 22 points in a game since the 31-6 smashing of the Jets all the way back in week 5. This is Carson Wentz's last 16 drives as an NFL quarterback. 3 points, 4 fumbles, 1 interception. It's not good. It's not very good at all. Philly's defense, though, has really stepped up the last couple of weeks. They're top 10 in yards per play and points per play allowed over their last 3 games. Miami cannot move the ball on the ground, so they're very one-dimensional now on offense. It's just through the air, and they're quite limited in that as well. They don't really have any superstar players, although Devontae Parker is having a low-key good year. But yeah, under is the play for me. I got no confidence in Philly covering. this spread here, just the way they're playing on offense. But they will get some bodies back, Jeffrey and Aguilar. But they can't catch. So I mean, what does that matter? So under 45 is the play for me, and that's where I'm going. Nick, what's your thoughts on the Philly?
Yeah, well, I've been really vocal about my concerns with the Eagles over the last kind of month or so. This is a must-win game, just like it is for the Cowboys and the Packers.
Every game is a must-win game. Jack.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Nick, sorry.
Well, they've got to win big as well. They've got to do it in style to start to get some confidence back in Philly. And you speak about Carson Wentz's last 16 drives. Like I said last week, I don't think it's all on him. You look at the receiving core last week; it was like the 76ers starting five in 2014-15 when they were the biggest tank job in professional sports ever. It was a horrible receiving core last week. Hopefully that improves this week. I just don't know. I can't trust them on offense. Can't seemingly trust them on defense either. And the Dolphins are the Dolphins, so who knows? It's pass for me.
The line opened at the very, very start of the week at 5.5, quickly moved to 7.5, and now at 9.5. Now, I think that speaks to how horrified everybody initially was with what they'd seen from Philly to start 5.5-point favorites against this Miami team. 7 weeks ago, people might have thought this was a 15-point line. Obviously a must win and a no margin of error from here on in for Philly. But I think they can get at least, look at the money line. Can they cover the line here? I think they're going to exploit it against Miami's offensive line, which has given up 46 sacks on the season, which is an NFL high. Philly's only strength at the moment is its pass rush, led by Barnett and Graham. They actually sacked Russell Wilson 6 times last week, held them to just 17 points, only 14 first downs. Those are real good defensive numbers for any team, especially against a really good Seattle offense. So I think Philly should be able to attack and exploit that massive Miami weakness early, and then it should be smooth sailing. But smooth sailing and Philly, they're not words that are going together very well at the moment. So, who do you guys have overall, Dallas or Philly winning that division? Because I think it's Dallas quite clearly.
It has to be Dallas at the moment, unfortunately.
Philly has a better schedule for the rest of the way. So,
but they'll have to play each other no matter what, right? Again.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's just going to come down to that. I mean,
I think it's for week 16 or 17 they play.
I have the Cowboys, but it's the NFL. Who knows?
But it also speaks just quickly to this. That's where Philly can't avoid that slip up, because once that one game goes, so if it was this week and Dallas were to beat Buffalo, then it's a 2-game gap. And that's, and they'd still have to win out.
Yep.
So,
as the schedule's nice, but you need to win. They're not, I don't know, they're not losing to Miami, surely. I mean, if they are, that's it. It's over.
But amazing. One of the big disappointments.
Back to Dakota.
A lot of people that was their Super Bowl tip, and this is a 5-6 team. So you talk about underperforming teams of the year. This is a top 3 team. Like really, really horrible year for Philly so far.
I took them like pick 3 in a wins pool. I'm just terrible. I'm gone. Can't win wins pool now. It's all over. They got the Dolphins, Giants, Redskins, Cowboys, and Giants. So if they win out, there's every chance that they've, got a winning record. I mean, where the Cowboys, they've got the Bears and Rams, but, the Rams aren't the Rams anymore, so who knows? So, we'll wait and see. Another discussion for another day. Cleveland -2.5 at Pittsburgh. The total is 39.5. This is a revenge spot, baby. Can't dream up a bigger revenge spot than this now after the Thursday night game between these two teams. How it ended. Mason Rudolph benched. The Browns obviously disappointed that they couldn't get their revenge on Mason Rudolph. So, Pittsburgh going to throw a different dynamic at the Browns with the mobile Devlin Duck Hodges under center, and the Browns, rush defense could, struggle against the Pittsburgh run game that's kind of found its footing last week. They started to get the ball rolling a little bit on the ground. The Cleveland offense, it's rounding out really nicely, but they played a broken Dolphins defense last week. The Browns' discipline issues will definitely come out again in this emotional game for me. So I just think that this line's well off to me. I have Pittsburgh favorite by -1.5, so I'm taking them +2.5. I think the line might have moved since I did the sheet this morning, so it could even be 1.5 now in terms of Cleveland. But I still like the Steelers here to win the game and to cover. So I'll be taking the money line, and I'm taking them +2.5. I definitely think Hodges is an upgrade over Rudolph. Rudolph's terrible. and Pittsburgh defense is for real. So I'm going to take the Steelers in a revenge spot.
Crazily enough, all of a sudden, Cleveland win this game and they're right in the playoff mix. If they were to pull this off, they'd only have to win 3 of their last 4 games to get to that magical 9 number in the AFC. And they still got 2 more games against Cincy on the docket and a game against Arizona as well. Yes, there's a game in there against Baltimore, which they won't win, but the magic number is very much alive for the Browns. But it'll all come down to this game. And I don't mind that actually in terms of for a decent spot for Cleveland. How many offenses are looking as bad as Pittsburgh's at the moment? They've slipped to 28th in the league for a good reason as well. And they're giving up a turnover in every single match they've played this year. Yes, there's not going to be Garrett to exploit that, which is a huge loss. Like we spoke about last week, that could actually completely undo the season. Another positive sign for Cleveland is the form of Baker Mayfield. This is 4 straight games now of posting a 90-plus QBR rating. He achieved that once in his first 7 games. So he's rounding into some form. I know the Pittsburgh defense is really, really quite good. So I think Browns can win this game, potentially cover as well, and you could even think about 350 to make the playoffs. The only thing is, obviously, the moment you get excited about Cleveland, they have a very, very special way of letting you down. So, I'll leave it there though, but don't mind the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about it on length last week. Every media publication channel has spoken about what happened a couple of weeks ago. There are massive ramifications from that game a fortnight ago. I'm kind of leaning Pittsburgh to cover the 2.5 at home, but I'm not sold on it. What I really like, and James touched on it with Baker Mayfield and the form that he's been in the last month. Jarvis Landry has been on fire for the last 4 weeks. His worst game in that period was against the Steelers 2 weeks ago, and he had 4 catches for 43 yards and a touchdown. That's not a bad worst game, right? You can get him for six or more receptions at about $1.85, $1.90, which I really like. He's become the go-to man on offense for Baker Mayfield. He had 10 targets for 5 receptions against the Patriots, 13 targets for 6 catches against Denver, 10 targets for 9 catches against Buffalo, 7 targets and 4 catches, I said earlier, against Pittsburgh last time, and another 13 targets for 10 more catches against the Dolphins last week. And I know that's the Dolphins, but he's been around that mark against really good defenses like the Patriots, the Broncos, and the Bills over that period too. So I really like that Landry 6 or more catches at $1.80, $1.90 if you can get it still.
Bless him.
Bless him. Don't doubt Duck Hodges. Quack, quack. Yeah. Man, if Pittsburgh win here, pretty much ends Cleveland's playoff chances, really, because they'll have the split the tie break and they got the better record. They go up a game. So this is a massive revenge spot for the Steelers after everything that's happened. This is juicy as hell for the 3M.
Yeah, it's but just jumping in, it's also like this is a moment, Cleveland. You've had so many moments of utter destitution and repulsion. This is a moment to make a big mark against an arch rival and put yourself in the driver's seat rather than Pittsburgh always stealing the show. Everything's gone wrong for Cleveland this year. All of a sudden, it could start going right with this win here. So,
or continue to stay bad, which is what they've always been.
That might be my favorite way of describing the last 10, 20 years of the Cleveland Browns is this complete destitution and repulsion.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's pretty much it at this point.
Absolutely.
I'm excited for this game. It means really absolutely nothing because neither of these teams are winning a playoff game. But anyway.
Should be entertaining. Nothing else.
I'm here for the spice.
For a team who never makes the playoffs, it would be a huge event for Cleveland just to make it. Yeah. It would be huge.
100%. So it'd be interesting. I'm keen for this game. It's one of the strongest players on my model this week. So, I'm keen to bet the Steelers. I'm not confident in it, but, quack, quack. I'm on the duck train. Let's go. New York Jets -3.5 at Cincinnati. The total is 41.5. Jets 3.5 point favorites. This is a crazy stat. The Jets have scored exactly 34 points in 3 straight weeks. So, wonder what price I can get for them to score exactly 34 points this week. I might shop around if you want to get the foil hat out and the conspiracy theory going there. Look, there tends to be value backing winless teams this late in the season for me, and I'm riding the Bengals again after they squeezed out the +6.5 last week. Going back to the well. Look, the Jets offense has really started to hit its stride. I really like the way Sam Darnold's played since him and Gase have had that meeting, but I don't know if they're going to have much success here in the red zone. Bengals actually rank 4th in red zone touchdown percentage, which is quite interesting. And the Bengals are desperate to avoid a winless season. Like, I know they want to tank, but they have an insurmountable lead here, so they need to win a game and keep their fans interested even remotely. And they've turned back to Andy Dalton, who's so much of an upgrade over Ryan Finley. Like, this is, like, Andy Dalton's fine. I think he's a decent quarterback. He can win you games. Look, he didn't play well in the first half of the year, but, yeah, Cordy Glenn's back as well. I like the Bengals to cover. Plus, you saw all the articles. Darnold and the Jets going out, partying hard after their win last week. Maybe Darnold's got some mono again or a bit flat from partying too hard. I'm taking Cincy plus 3.5. Going to sprinkle a little on the money line as well for the Bengals here. As much as I've loved backing the Jets the last 3 weeks, they've been a real fun team to bet, and they've been kind of the dog every week that I've been backing. But now at a favorite and a road favorite in that, I'm gonna flip the script and take the Bengals. Do you agree, Nick, or we got a head to head?
Yeah, I think we've got a head to head this week. I can't back the Bengals. I want to because I really don't want to touch the Jets either being favourites, but like you, kind of been on the Jets a couple of times in the last few weeks as the dog, but I think they'd just be too strong on both sides of the ball based on the last kind of 3 or 4 weeks of football. I don't see what the Bengals have to gain by winning this game, and I think if it's about this whole remaining winless and getting a win finally, then there are other winnable games that they've got. They've got home and road matchups against the Browns still coming, and the Dolphins again. So yeah, I don't know. Even as you said, if the Jets offense is a bit flat, their defense, which is ranked 5th on the year, on the back of it, what is a really incredible run defense, they should be too strong for the Bengals. Joe Mixon hasn't had a great year, but when Dalton was out, he averaged double the amount of carries with Finley than he did when Dalton was in the first half of the year. So it's just an interesting kind of side note to this matchup. Interestingly, I can't see Tyler Boyd in any receiving prop markets yet, but as he has been all year, he'll be the number one option for Dalton, and I think Dalton will suit him more than Finley. And he should be a really good option in DFS and props. So just keep an eye out for that because he's not available anywhere yet. So keep an eye out. But yeah, I think Jets too strong, and the 3.5 is juicy.
I've got Jets unders tickets, season win totals under 5.5, under 6.5, under 7. Stop winning, Jets. That's all I want to say. No play for me, but just stop winning.
So you're with me. Let's go, Bengals. You're with me. Welcome. Welcome to the dark side of backing a winless underdog. 2 weeks
just
in a row.
Just no more Jets win. I thought this would be a lot easier than this. I thought I would have already cashed by now, just about.
I'm in a Lions tipping comp, and last week I went in with the Jets and Cincinnati. It's just and some other just bad teams, but they seem to cover. It's been a wild ride the last month. It's fun. I don't know.
Cover and winning as well now. What have they won? Like 3 of their last 4 or something like that? Enough.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. They've been great. They've been good. All right, let's move on from I guess a bleak affair, but when you got money on it, there's no such thing as a bleak affair. But this is easily, we're all in agreement here, the match of the week. San Fran at Baltimore. Baltimore minus 5.5. The total is 46.5. I'm going against you guys, I think, from what I can see here, but I'm just gonna talk a little bit of DVOA about the Ravens. So by DVOA, the Baltimore Ravens had the best game of the year last week at 122.5%, and the San Francisco 49ers had the second best game of the year at a plus 111.6%. So they're both coming off their best games of the season, and one being the best game of any team in the season, and the other being the second best game of any team this season. In their past 5 games, the Ravens have an average DVOA of 75.4%. Here's how good that is. Only 7 other teams this season have had a single game as good as what Baltimore has done over that 5-game span. Baltimore now moves past Dallas into the top spot in offensive DVOA this week, and the Ravens also move up from 10th to 4th in defensive DVOA. Combine that with their rank in special teams, which is 2nd. The Ravens are now in the top 4 in all 3 phases of the game. That's why they're now the new number 1 team in my ratings and many power rankings as well. But the 49ers, you can't ignore them. They're pretty difficult to ignore. Aaron Rodgers was held to 104 passing yards last week in that loss. Jimmy G's hitting up as well, 11-3 in the touchdown to interception ratio after a pretty below average, mediocre start to the season. He's averaged 310 passing yards per game over the last 4 games. So, we've seen everything but the quarterback early on, and now they're bringing the quarterback into the mix. He's starting to find his feet, starting to get comfortable, and he's done it with some banged up players as well over that stretch. George Kittle returned and had a big game. You'll get Emmanuel Sanders a little bit more healthy and things, and Deebo Samuel's coming along very, very well. For me, as good as the Ravens are, and I said last week that I'm going to keep picking the Ravens until they don't cover, 5.5 is massive between 2 of the best 3 teams in the league. Obviously, I think anyone has Ravens, Pats, and 49ers as the best 3 teams in the league in whatever order. I guess you're splitting hairs. I don't have this close to 5.5. I have this, where are we? I have this Ravens minus 3.5. So I just think this is too big of a gap here for me. So I'm going to take San Fran plus 5.5 on the road. I think you guys are against me. Is that correct, Nick?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you on a lot of that. Just not the result, really, or the bet. But, I said last week that Baltimore are the best team in football at the moment, and I think I said something like it's not even close. I think that's bared out. They've delivered in spades. They routed the Rams by 1 billion points in Los Angeles. The Rams offense was rendered completely useless. Lamar, another 5 passing touchdowns that's not bad for a running back. Still nearly 100 yards on the ground as well. He does everything. This Ravens beast is nigh on unstoppable at the moment, and I think you just got to ride the hot hand. With the exception of the Pats, though, in Week 8, this 49ers defense will be by far the best they've faced in this season, and by quite a margin. And their offense hasn't been bad either in the last couple of weeks. They've put up 20-plus points in 5 straight weeks, and I think we spoke a fair bit during the first half of the season about how they really needed to prove themselves on offense, and Jimmy G had to prove himself throwing the ball, and they're doing that. They're doing everything that we've kind of asked of them so far. But the Ravens, as you said, they're now the number 1 ranked team on offense. They're now the number 4 ranked team on defense, according to DVOA, and they're number 2 on special teams. This Baltimore unit is indeed special. Like I said, keep riding the hot hand. Take Baltimore minus 5.5. I do think, as you said, that line might come out, so take it now.
I think it's going to get, if it gets to 6, I'm just
I think it will get to 6, and I think it may even get to 6.5.
Yep.
Take it now while you can, if you like it.
Yep.
You guys have set this massive game up absolutely brilliantly with everything you've said.
Super Bowl preview, potentially.
Potentially, but this is where I was about to say one small disagreement. I think Josh has said that New England, San Francisco, and Baltimore splitting hairs between who is the best out of these 3.
Yep.
A certain team from the Pacific Northwest did go into San Francisco 2 weeks ago, gave them a 10-point start, and still reeled them in. That's the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
Don't forget about them.
Please, overrated.
They beat them in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago from 10 points by. It's a huge, huge win. I think, all the statistical measures are saying that these 2 teams are phenomenal. Top 10 defense, top 10 offense, you name it, they're fantastic. The one vulnerability I think that Baltimore might be able to exploit in this game is their quietly underrated defense, who, with Martindale, is just blitzing out of this world. That's assisted by having leads and taking advantage of sort of demoralized offenses who are trying to catch up. But they're blitzing on 51% of their players, which is significantly more than the next best in the comp, which is Arizona at 44. Garoppolo has suffered 15 sacks over his last 5 games. Baltimore can get him. They can get to him and they can put him under pressure. I know I'm sort of really late to the party with Garoppolo. I'm still not thoroughly convinced, even though the underlying numbers I spoke before about Baker Mayfield having 4 90-plus games of QPR. He's 4 of his last 111, 136, 115, 146. That's Garoppolo in 4 of his last 5 games from a QBR perspective. So, the numbers and the production are there, but I just want to see it still in a huge game. Green Bay, we know that defense is very average and was sliced up, and they were playing from behind as well. So he had it on a plate. Lean is Ravens. I think they're the better team. I really do, and I think they can cover that 5.5 as well. Yeah. So
I think they're the better team, but it's just too many points. It's just too many points between these 2 teams for me. It's worth noting as well, Matt Skura, the starting center for the Ravens, on IR. So they're going to an undrafted rookie, potentially playing center against the best defensive line in the entire league.
That's what the Ravens do best. That's what the Ravens do that best in finding these guys and making them. He
was second in Pro Bowl voting. Like Skura's having such a good season. So that's a big loss. It's just for an undrafted rookie's first start to be up against Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner like that.
That's forward as well.
Yeah, it's a massive ask.
And that's what I was going to say. As even I'm one of the last to really truly accept San Francisco's bona fides. That defensive line is the best in the league. Yeah. That is a menacing, destructive, fast defensive line. Looks off the charts.
Lamar, baby, please be safe, baby bear.
Yeah.
Please protect your legs. Get out of bounds, baby.
And it's true because Lamar is like, we're NFL junkies here, and it's touching on what Nick said in terms of what he's thankful for. Yeah. These quarterbacks have electrified the NFL this season. Yeah. And it was an excellent point to be thankful for. We were going through that little period of who's going to take over those greats, the Brees, the Bradys, the Rodgers.
Yeah.
We're ridiculously lucky at the moment.
Brees and Brady and Rodgers, get out of here.
Exactly. Give me Russell Watson, Lamar. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. Get out of here. And Brissett.
And Kyler Murray as well.
Yeah, great. Was
there a Brissett in there?
Oh, yeah. Just kidding.
That's great.
Yeah. But that's, I'm thankful for...
What were you saying about Mason Rudolph?
Yeah, please. We're not thankful for him. This could be a massive, if Lamar lights this San Fran up and just destroys them like he did against the Rams, like, that's a massive thing. Like, this is totally two different competitions. But if he still plays so good against them, I think he locks up MVP. But this could be a game where he loses MVP, where they really pound him and make him suffer or throw picks, and just, this could be kind of like a depancing if the San Fran, that D-line can be dominant and really embarrass any quarterback, really. So, this kind of has a massive hinge on Lamar Jackson's MVP. It shouldn't. One game should not define an MVP season, but the way that this thing goes, it's kind of like, Lamar won this week, Russell won last week. Like, you watch the ebbs and flows of the prices on a week-to-week basis, but I just want him to come out alive. I got him at $67 for MVP, so come on, baby. Please.
Very nice.
Please protect your legs. Come on.
Is this 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock start, guys? In terms of our time?
They should have flexed this into, this is ridiculous. I mean, the primetime games aren't bad, but come on. Flex this out at least. And last week we had 9 early games and 2 late games. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous. The scheduling's been terrible this season.
It's horrendous. All right, let's move on from a game of the week to probably the second best game of the week. Washington at Carolina. Carolina minus 9.5. I can't even say that with a straight face. The total is 40.5. I laugh, but I have a play in this game. 40.5. I like Carolina minus 9.5 this week. I know they probably shouldn't be favored by that much against anyone, but here's Washington in their quote-unquote win last week. They had 13 first downs. The Lions had 21.
Wow.
They had 4 yards per play. The Lions had 5.1 yards per play. They lost time of possession. They committed more penalties. Didn't score a single offensive touchdown. Haskins threw for 5.4 yards per attempt on 156 yards and had an interception. They won that game because of a kickoff return touchdown, and Driscoll wet the bed on numerous occasions. They're bad. As bad as Kyle Allen was against the Falcons, he's not doing that against this Redskins team. The Redskins ranked 28th in rushing defense. It's not bode well for them facing Christian McCaffrey, who has has over 1,700 total yards. Yes, Christian McCaffrey has scored more touchdowns this season than the entire Washington team. Taking Carolina minus 9.5. I'm going to look around for some margins as well, and maybe this is a big win. Big win for me. I have it minus 12. So I think I have Washington. I think I have the Bengals rated higher than Washington. Yeah, with Andy Dalton back in the lineup. So Washington are closer to the Dolphins than anyone else in the league for me.
That's super depressing if you're a Redskins fan.
What do they do well? They're like the Giants. What do they honestly do well? They play fast games. That's what they're efficient at. They just run the clock out of the season. They're on to next season at this point.
So how do you explain the fact that the Carolina Panthers are only ranked 3 spots higher on overall DVOA efficiency than the Redskins? They clearly on paper they look like a better team.
Yeah.
But the stats don't bear that out. And they were half decent last week, and like you said earlier, they had chances to win.
Yeah, they've been half decent for a lot of the season. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the one team that my rankings don't quite match up with DVOA. That's the biggest discrepancy for me.
Well, I think
I got the Panthers like 13th, and everywhere else they're like ranked in the 20s. So I don't understand.
For me, the big thing is that the Panthers, up until last week, had failed in any big moment situation. And I kind of mentioned that last week, and they failed in failing, like I kind of expected them to.
There's no bigger moment than being a home favorite to Washington, though.
But yeah, I still don't rate them, even though they did put up good effort against the Saints, and like you said, could have won. I just think that this line is slightly too big. I'm kind of leaning Washington, but yeah, I just don't know. I'll probably pass this one, to be honest. James?
Yeah, no play from me, just that Washington is quite easily and by significant margin the worst offense in the National Football League, but that is a big number.
Yeah.
For Carolina.
Haskins has been awful. I mean, still think you got to give him a chance, but I don't know.
He didn't get to that final snap of the football either, unfortunately, to celebrate that famous.
I mean, how do we even not mention that? That was.
See, I told you guys pre-season the start of Washington's Haskins fever. That's it. That's that fever I'm talking about. Already taking hold of the fans.
I enjoyed all the hot takes this week on that.
What's with Washington quarterbacks celebrating in like weird fashions? They've got the Kirk Cousins. The outburst in the tunnel a couple of years ago. But Haskins taking selfies.
Nick, you know what? My theory there is this is the product of a horrible franchise. This is what happens when there's no class, there's no structure. Cousins, that came from a place of, you want to give me another franchise tag? You want to treat me like absolute rubbish? Yeah. This is this whole franchise to a T who need the biggest. Unfortunately, it starts with the owner, right? So that's where we're all absolutely hamstrung to get genuine change happening there. But they're just about the worst.
At least he didn't kneel in the red zone to end a half, like Kirk Cousins did about 4 years ago. So, I mean, that's the second most egregious thing that Washington quarterback's done at this point. I didn't mind the selfie. I thought it was pretty funny. I mean, I would have liked it more if he had. I would have liked it more if he played decent. I mean, it's like you're celebrating 156 yards at 5 yards per attempt and an interception. Like, come on. I mean, although that's better than Tom Brady's last 2 weeks, so who knows at this point. All right.
Dabo Sweeney coaching them next year. What do you think?
Oh boy, poor Dabo. No, he has standards. No. Blow it up, man. Blow it up.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You got to blow it up. You got to do something. Something has to change there.
Yeah. Move him to the XFL at this point. They'd be suited for that. All right. Oakland at Kansas City. Kansas City minus 9.5. So another 9.5 fave. Total is 51.5. Oakland had the single worst game of the season by DVOA last week, even worse than anything Miami have ever produced. So their week 12, 34-3 loss to the Jets was minus 123.8%. It was a putrid showing by them, so much so that a lot of analysts on Twitter have actually begun re-apologizing or taking back apologies that they previously made a couple of weeks ago, saying that they were wrong about the Raiders initially. So that's where I'm going to segue to you guys. Are you both taking back apologies? I'm going to apologize to you guys because I made you apologize. Because I was like, the Raiders offense is fine. And I still think that overall it's like they're throwing to like Hunter Renfro's, they're like wide receiver one. It's not the best recipe for success, but to be that bad against the Jets is beyond excusable, really.
It seems like a really long fortnight ago that I was down on my knees. I'm sorry, Oakland. I was wrong. I was wrong about you.
Yeah.
But I'm headed back to the Raiders are trash well. The Chiefs at Arrowhead are tough enough for any team, let alone a team ranked 30th in pass defense, like the Raiders are against this Chiefs passing offense. Patrick Mahomes has had one really good game and one kind of average game since he came back from that injury. But I reckon he's just trending to be cherry ripe, leading into the playoffs now. And for this matchup, he should be raring to go. It's a really big line at 9.5, which always makes me a bit hesitant, as I said in the last game. But I think the Chiefs should win this fairly easily with that offense against that defense. I'm on the Chiefs train again.
Yeah, Raiders, my God. The playoff hopes, if you lose, they only lost to Cincinnati the week before this Jets disgraceful performance, giving up 34 points with the playoffs absolutely were in reach. I think the Chiefs are going to torch them here. Gruden against a kind of offense that makes him think outside the square, or his whole structure blows his mind. He will get this. This is going to be a big, big, big blowout. But my anger with Gruden and Oakland is having tickets on them at under 6 and under 6.5. And then when they started decently jumping in a little bit to the Oakland playoff price to kind of hedge that. So the worst possible thing for me was them winning 7 or 8 games this season. That's exactly what those guys are going to fall on. Yeah. And I'm just so angry with that because, really, really angry. I feel like actually my face is turning into John Gruden as I say this.
He's funny that though. If they win this game, they're winning the division. So that's something to watch. This is for first place in the division,
which sounds so ridiculously weird.
Wrong. Yeah. It's just wrong.
Yeah. But this could be a handful of touchdowns to Mahomes, and I think this will be a double-digit cover quite easily.
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning Chiefs minus 9.5, but I can't take 2 9.5-point favorites, and my numbers prefer Carolina. But Oakland can't be that bad again, surely. Like they just cannot be that bad. I think the bye week came at a great time for the Chiefs to get players back and get healthy. I think it's just good timing for them.
Andy Reid off a bye week as well.
He's been nearly unbeatable off a bye in his career, 17-3 straight up. He's just 3-3 against the spread though in his Chiefs career off a bye.
He's not a gambler.
So that's So look, the number is very tempting, but I'm gonna leave it. Division game, close to 10 points, but this wouldn't surprise me if the Chiefs win by 30 odd points or something like that. Because you're right. I think the Chiefs are actually still underrated. I think their defense has actually played a lot better than expected.
It has. And run defense as well.
They've just had a lot of injuries and things on offense and just haven't quite got into rhythm. And Mahomes is still putting up great numbers. It's just this after the bye now. I think they're going to run the table. I don't think they lose the rest of the way. They do play the Pats, but I think they're just primed for a good run, and I think they're definitely still a sleeping giant.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In the AFC playoffs. I don't want to be facing them, that's for sure. All right, let's move on to Tennessee at Indianapolis. Indy minus 2.5, totals 43.5. Tennessee, always just in the mix. They're always like 1 or 2 games out of the playoffs, the Titans. So they're always just hanging around that you can't fork them. But they're also never going to ever make the playoffs or win more than 10 games. So it's kind of a weird, it feels like every Tennessee season is that.
Yep. 3 straight seasons of 9-7.
Yeah, I should just bet on them to go 9-7 every year. For me, this is a pass. The line's spot on for me. Until I see Jacoby Brissett take some actual deep shots down the field and hit on them and stop holding on to the ball too long. I'm going to avoid the Colts. It's not mean I'm going to fade them either. The Colts absolutely outplayed the Texans pretty much in every facet last week except quarterback play, and they still covered the spread. So even despite, all of that, they still covered. Last week was the first time I was probably genuinely impressed with Ryan Tannehill. Thought his form was a little bit overblown because everyone was like, oh, it's not Mariota, oh, it's Tannehill, and people were getting way too overexcited. But I think last week was easily his best game of the season. I think the Colts are a better team, top to bottom, much better head coached as well, and they're at home. But I need to see it from Jacoby. He was the obvious weak link last week. He was #bad, and it was more like I want to move on. I was even considering Swag Kelly, but I'll go back to Jacoby. Jacoby's a great dude. He's just an average quarterback, and that's fine. It's fine. I don't like cheering against him, but I want him to give me reasons to cheer for him as well.
I was just going to jump in, Josh, just quickly. If we do lose Jacoby Brissett, that's going to mean we lose all those Bill Parcells stories. Where every single week we get reminded of the relationship he has with Bill Parcells.
Oh, yeah, true. It's the Brock, Brock Osweiler's 6'8". It's the.
I didn't know that. Scott Pendlebury used to play basketball.
Yeah, true, yeah. And, Antonio Gates used to play basketball.
Yeah, he did too.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to pass. Has anyone got a play on this, Nick?
Yeah, look, the Titans are on a bit of a roll here. It's a pass for me in the major markets, but I do have a play that I'll touch on. And just, you talk about Ryan Tannehill. He's quietly been very good for the last couple of weeks. I know when he first came in, he was mediocre, average at best, but the last couple of weeks he's been quite good. Last couple of weeks combined for 440 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, another 80 or so yards running. So he's trusting his legs more. And that's what he was known as the athlete coming out of college in the NFL. He's trusting his legs, trusting his body, and he's playing really well. The Colts have been pretty good against the pass all season, but they have conceded an average of nearly 300 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns each week over the last fortnight. It's a really interesting matchup. It's kind of, you've touched on the Colts just before, but my play this week for for the Titans, Derrick Henry is the hottest running back in the NFL over the last couple of weeks. He's 347 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns. He also ended last season on fire. And it seems to be a bit of a trend. I don't know if it's his running style that he's just, the way that he runs is so powerful. He's able to take advantage of run blockers that are getting tired at the end of a long season. He's been really good. And for what it's worth, the Colts have the 19th ranked run defense, according to Football Outsiders DVOA. And you can get $2.10 for Derrick Henry, 100 plus rushing yards, which I think is very nice given what he's done in the last couple of weeks.
And guys, I'm going to flash my AFC South immunity badge here, especially when AFC South teams play against each other. It's a no-go for me. Can't make heads or tails of them.
Okay. The winner will probably likely be in first place of the division because the Texans will lose to the Pats, which we'll touch on in a little bit. All right, let's move on. Tampa Bay at Jacksonville. Jacksonville minus 1.5. The total's 48.5. I like the over 48.5 here. The over's cashed in 9 straight Bucks games. I'm going to go along for the ride here while it's less than 50. Look, Winston's, he's actually really good at, hitting on big plays for both teams, whether it's long touchdowns or pick six. So he's really great for overs. Like he's the perfect overs quarterback in the NFL, really. The Bucks' excellent run D forces team to throw, which is bad for the Tampa Bay because their pass defense is terrible. It's although it's actually improved after dumping their first round corner from a couple of years ago in Vernon Hargreaves. But yeah, I think Foles should have success at some point. It just he seems too good to be this bad. So I think after back-to-back divisional games back at home against a bad pass defense, I like DJ Shark to have 100 plus yards. I'm not sure if there's a price on that yet. He's going to be a DFS play for me this week. But yeah, I like the over 48. Any thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, I'm going to keep this brief because I think we're running a bit long, but I agree with you. I don't have a whole lot more to add on that. So I also like the over 48.5. James?
Yuck. Let's pass.
Okay. Jags have been leaking points left, right, and center as well, which is handy. The Rams minus 3 on the road at Arizona. The total is 47.5. This reeks of a trap game. But how the hell are the Cardinals, fresh off the bye, getting 3 points at home against an anemic Rams outfit? It's crazy to me. I think the biggest winners of San Fran's complete annihilation of the Packers last week were the Cardinals. In 2 games against the 49ers, they've moved the ball well, put up points, been competitive, should have covered the spread in both of those games. There was a garbage end-of-game lateral fumble return touchdown that meant that they didn't cover. But they've been great. So, the Rams' offense is broken, but they could rebuild against this bad Cardinals defense. But the Cardinals are 5-1-1 against the spread in their last 7 games. I just mentioned this probably should have been 6-1. The Rams have had issues stopping offenses spearheaded by a mobile quarterback, and I think they'll struggle against Kyler Murray as well on a short week, backing up. Arizona's had 2 weeks to prepare. I like Arizona plus 3. I think they win this outright. I'm fading the Rams hard down the stretch here.
I really like the overs again in this one. I think both teams average just over 23 points per game, and they're going to come up against pretty poor defenses. The Rams are ranked 20th in pass defense. The Cards are 30th overall defense. I think this could be a really high scoring game. And like you said, the Rams aren't able to stop mobile quarterbacks. So Kyler Murray could have a bit of a day out. Obviously Kyler Murray is not Lamar Jackson and he's not going to do at the same level what Lamar did last week against the Rams. But, it's a much weaker defense than the Ravens to back him up. So I think the Rams are going to have opportunities to score coming back the other way. Likes of Goff, Kupp, Gurley, Woods, etc. are going to have opportunities. Whether they can take them or not, that's another question. But I like the over here, over 47.5.
For me, I like the Arizona to cover. I like the Cardinals to cover as well. Really aggressive defense, blitz rate of 44%. And I reckon the 3 of us would give Jared Goff jitters at the moment if they saw us on the pass rush. Chandler Jones for Arizona having a quietly annihilating season. 15 quarterback hits, 12.5 sacks on the season. Rarely does a former Patriot excel elsewhere. He absolutely is. This is Arizona for me for the reasons that you guys have said, and I wouldn't want to be touching any of the Rams at the moment. They look a mess.
Yeah, it's pretty. He would have jitters just because he'd be shocked that 3 white, unathletic guys are lining up on defense. He'd just be shocked by that. Poor Jalen Ramsey traded from the Jags, putting up with 1 Bortles his entire career. Now he's playing with on a team with 2 Blake Bortles. Poor Jalen. All right. Chargers minus 2.5 at Denver. Total is 38.5. The Chargers entered this week with a 14th ranked offense, 5th best defense in the NFL based on total yards, but they're 4-7. The reason for that is turnovers. They're minus 9 in turnover differential so far this season, the 5th worst in the NFL. Derwin James back this season after missing his first 11 games. So that's going to be massive, but how fit is he going to be? My numbers like Denver +3, but I am worried about the Derwin James impact because he just does so much for the secondary because he's just so versatile and so he's just always around the ball. But again, we just don't know how fit he's going to be. So there's a looming question mark. I'd probably take Denver if it hits +3. I think Drew Lock might be starting as well for the Broncos. So the Brandon Allen experiment is correctly over. But that's all I've got on this one.
Yeah, I think the line is pretty spot on in this one. I like to favour the Broncos at home just because they know it so well and it's difficult for teams to go to Denver and play in that altitude. The Chargers offense also, you look at the talent on that offensive unit, just hasn't been as impressive as the actual football talent suggests that it should be. So I'm kind of leaning Denver at home. It's probably a pass. Like you said, if that line comes out to 3, then Denver +3 is probably the play. 2 to 2.5 is probably a pass for me.
This is the 6th game on the slate this week that is pitting 2 teams who are out of playoff contention. So this is nothing like last week's fiesta of football, guys, unfortunately. This kind of reminds me of the Chicago-Detroit game as well, in terms of 2 teams, really uncertain franchise futures regarding all sorts of elements of the team and the construction. So it's a pass to me on that alone. I could see there being about 12 turnovers as well in this game. So pass.
All right, let's go to Sunday Night Football. New England -3, -3.5. It's flat 3 some places, 3.5 other places, but I think more likely hitting the 3.5 mark. At Houston, the total is 44.5. For me, it's New England -3 and -3.5, but obviously more confident in the flat 3. But Bill Belichick's own Bill O'Brien, and I doubt much is going to change in this matchup. Look, the offense has been struggling a little bit for the Pats, but this is a much, much easier defensive matchup here. Houston's defense is 26th in DVOA, 31st on third downs, and 32nd in the red zone, which just screams the right spot for Brady to get back on track and get the company and everyone loaded up and in sync and on the same page. On the other side, I don't expect an offense that ranks 15th in DVOA. That's played a pretty easy schedule and, struggled a little bit. He only scored 20-odd points against the Colts last week. How are they going to go against this Pats top-rated defense? Belichick continues to build on a great record indoors and this is a good one, a retractable roof against the spread market here. 17-6 against the spread since 2001 when playing under a retractable roof. So Belichick can find an edge everywhere, mate. He's going to roll. He's going to roll in Houston. Stephon Gilmore killing it it well. That bit would have sounded so better if I could just pronounce retractable properly. But
it was still good though.
I really started. I really hit.
It's so Belichick as well.
Yeah, I got excited, but I just couldn't pronounce it. But yeah, New England -3. It's really cute how many people are picking the Texans this week. This is real cute. But it's not going to happen. Please.
You mentioned Belichick, owning Bill O'Brien. I'm not sure that there's anything that Bill O'Brien is better than Bill Belichick at in the world. I just don't think there is anything that Bill O'Brien does better than
being
Bill Belichick.
submissive.
What was Stugat saying about being a good lover? We don't know.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, I'm leaning the unders in this one. I think the Pats, as good as they are defensively, are nowhere near that level offensively this season. On the flip side, the Texans' defense is nowhere near as effective as their offensive unit. And so my kind of gut feel is that the Pats' number 1 ranked defense, or number 2 ranked defense now, is going to be able to stifle Houston's 15th ranked offense. But the New England offense also won't be able to take complete advantage of the gaping holes in the Houston defense. And usually it's not an issue because they don't have to because their defense is so good. Yep. But I can kind of see this being a really low scoring, whatever. So yeah, under 44.5 for me.
Absolutely the Pats for me. And it's in main part in terms of the Texans D is really now is finding out what life post Clowney and post JJ Watt is like. It's failed to produce a turnover in 3 of its last 4 matches and has given up 24 points, at least 24 points in 5 of its last 7. Pat's running game starting to click into gear as well. And no, they're not lighting up the scoreboard, but they're not turning it over. And this comes back to what Josh was saying last week in terms of the Dallas preview, that death by thousands cuts mantra with Patriots. They know how to beat you. I know the numbers aren't glowing, but they know what they're doing. And that retractable roof thing, I could just see Belichick sort of asking a staffer for exact dimensions and timing of when that roof retracts and at what time they're going to close the roof. I'm sure he'd have numbers and strategy behind it.
Yeah.
Plus the incentive. Pats are still playing for that number 1 seed. I know they're there, but they're one banana little peel away from losing it, and they're potentially having an AFC conference in Baltimore, which is...
They play the Chiefs next week, so you need to rack this win up here.
I was going to say, remember what happened last time New England were in Baltimore as well.
Yep.
Gave up about 40 points. So
yeah, exactly.
Pats, for me, get this job done, and exactly this O'Brien versus Belichick, another coaching massive mismatch.
There was gaping holes in Houston's D, and Brissett just didn't bite the bullet and throw the ball, and that's where the Colts left so many points on the board. So I can see the Pats taking advantage of that wholeheartedly.
And Deshaun Watson's been a bit down the last 2 weeks. I know those numbers look good, but that was a Hopkins show there and some defensive failings by Colts. So
exactly, that was just a wide open. Malik Hooker just took the wrong route. So that's not going to happen for New England. Like, their safeties don't read the wrong route. If they read the wrong route, they're in a ditch somewhere.
This is the best secondary. We were talking about San Francisco's D-line. I don't think I've ever seen a secondary like this.
Yeah.
We're going to have the defensive player of the year there as well.
Gilmore. It's phenomenal.
To say nothing in the McCourtry. So, exactly. Phenomenal. Hightower, who goes back in there all the time.
He's killing it. Monday Night Football, Minnesota at Seattle. Seattle -3. Total is 48.5. Look, Seattle plays great when the pressure's on. Since 2012, they're 21-7-2 against the spread in primetime, and 22-15-2 against the spread against playoff teams. This is a great test for Kirk Cousins, who's been much maligned for his inability to beat quality opponents and, being bad in primetime. He's actually 2-0 in primetime games this year. One of those was Washington, so maybe 1-0. But yeah, he's 7-13 in primetime overall. Look, I have this Seattle -3.5, so the line looks absolutely spot on. It's a pure watch and enjoy game for me. No play whatsoever at all on this. It's a big game though for like power rankings reasons and the power shift in the NFC. These two teams are likely wild card at worst at this point, but divisions on the line firmly for both teams here. So really, I think second best match of the week, but yeah, nothing from me.
Yeah, I agree. Second best match of the week. It's a really cool matchup actually for Monday Night Football.
Horrible Jersey matchup though.
These two teams are really closely situated in DVOA offense and defense. They're actually number 7 and number 8 in overall efficiency on DVOA as well. So this should be a really interesting game. Minnesota are a really strange beast in that they're nearly unstoppable at home, but they can be really ordinary on the road. And we know both teams can put up points. Seattle can certainly score at will. Sometimes, I think James mentioned last week that Seattle can score at will. And the Vikings probably have an edge on defense, but away from home, I'm not sold on their ability to be consistent and kind of their consistent strengths away from home. So I'm taking Seattle with the points to close out the week.
I love everything about this Seattle team. Could be the best in the NFC. They've answered pretty much every challenge put against them except the Baltimore one. However, my big fear here continues to be the offensive line. Got sacked 6 times against Philly last week, played a massive role in committing 12 penalties for the match against Philly as well. And I think the Vikings are the exact kind of team who can go there and exploit that. They've got 31 sacks on the season, and they least tackles missed in the competition. So they're in that kind of Patriots discipline category as well for defense. They're a locked-in team rolling at the right time of the year. They've also got a significant rest advantage in this game too, coming off the bye where Seattle's coming all the way from the East Coast for a really rainy, exhausting match against Philly. I rarely go against Seattle, but I am here, so Vikings +3 and maybe even a money line play as well. So
interesting.
That won't curtail Seattle's division prospects over, by the way, because they still have that win against San Francisco, but this could be a spot.
Okay. All right. That wraps up week 13, Thanksgiving week in the NFL. Let's talk lock of the week. Just the one lock of the week this week. We're going back to one a week, although we may have a week where we have two or three. But this week, across the board, both Nick and James have Dallas -6.5 as a play. I have a pretty strong lean that it's close to a play, so that's as close to a lock as we're going to get. So the Dallas Cowboys, Thanksgiving Day play, -6.5 against the Buffalo Bills is a lock of the week. Let's talk best bets and long shots. Nick, start us off. What's your best bets and long shots for week 13?
Best bets, Dallas -6.5. Rams Cards over 47.5 and Jets -3.5, my three best. And long shot, as I mentioned before, Derrick Henry, 100 plus rushing yards at $2.10.
Okay. James, what do you got for us? Mostly futures, or are you going back to the weekly well?
I go weekly at the moment.
Yeah. Wow, I'm loving it.
Dallas 6.5. Pats to cover as well at 3 or to 3.5, whatever that is. And Vikings 3 would be great if we can get 3.5 there as well. And a long shot, depends what you think a long shot is. 350 Browns playoffs. And also just throw in there as well, there's still $1.70 hanging out there for Dallas to win the NFC East, which I think is really good value, to be honest. So,
okay. My best bet this week is Arizona +3. I said it reeked like a trap game, but I'm just going to take it. Kyler Murray and the Cards, just too confident in them and the way that the arrow is trending firmly up in their direction. Carolina -9.5 to cover that strong line there at home against Washington. I've got a little asterisk here on my last one. New England is at the flat 3. If it gets there, that'll be the lock. If it doesn't get there, over 48.5, Tampa Bay, Jacksonville. I'll tweet that out Sunday night on whether what will be the official play for the pod, just because of the way the line movement goes. My long shot, DJ Shark, 100 plus rushing yards. That would be insane. DJ Shark, 100 plus receiving yards at $3. I don't know if you can get this anywhere in Australian shores, but Josh Allen, 50 plus rushing yards around that $2.50 mark or $2.40 mark, could be a go there as well. I think he's going to pop and run a lot, but I think DJ Shark, the 100 plus is the long shot this week. All right, Nick, let's quickly talk the Stats Insider model. Daryl, who knows who Daryl is? He's an international man of mystery at this point.
He's a busy man.
Yeah. So, how did the model went 2-1 last week on the show and the Tampa Bay money line as well? But how did the model do overall in terms of results?
Yeah, 3-1 on NFL lines last week, 2-1 on the green plays, 0-2 on totals, which was interesting. It's historically been very strong on totals, so bit of an aberration for the model on NFL totals. 8-6 on college lines, 2-zip on the green, and 11-8 college football totals. So pretty decent week.
Okay.
Pretty decent week.
And what does the model like in Thanksgiving week here in the NFL?
Yeah, there's a fair bit up on site at the moment, so check it out, statsinsider.com.au/NFL. It is a big week. But kind of the three best bets, the model likes Detroit at the line, +4.5, which is 12% green play, likes Cleveland -1. That's a 9% green play, and Tampa Bay head-to-head. This is an interesting one because it's actually saying that according to our NFL simulations, that Tampa Bay are 58%, are a 58% chance to win the game compared to the bookies' implied probability of 51%. So that's a 7% difference and an orange play on site. The long shot this week, there's a couple of really similar plays. Detroit head-to-head, the model saying it's that the Lions have a 41% probability to win this match compared to the bookies' 33%. And Atlanta head-to-head, 36% chance compared to the bookies, which are implying a 28% win probability. So there's a couple of decent long shots there.
Yeah, I like those money line plays, especially Tampa Bay. I think that's pretty good money line play there. And Detroit, who knows what David Blau is like? It's a complete mystery. Like, would it really shock you if Detroit win at home against Mitch Trubisky? No.
Well, I mean, like, how many times have we said this season that this is the NFL? Anything can happen.
Exactly. I'd rather go down swinging with Detroit money line than taking the Bears -4.5 at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I like the model's thinking there, and Tampa Bay seems to be a team that likes every week at this point. The last 3 weeks, it's just in on Tampa Bay. It just likes riding the Winston coaster, really, at this point.
Well, it did like Tampa Bay last season with Fitzmagic too.
Did.
So.
Yeah, proven success there. Going back to the success well. It's a good strategy. Stick with what works. All right, boys. That's week 13 in the National Football League and the punt return. Great show today. Please, guys, check us out on Twitter and iTunes reviews. Keep them coming. You can do it on the Woot and Y iTunes feed or Stats Insider on your podcast provider. Or if you don't use iTunes or whatever, just tweet us or send us an email even. Or just go to statsinsider.com.au. Any feedback's welcomed. We really appreciate that and make the show better.
And share it. I mean, we've had some great feedback from listeners who have gotten in touch with us via email that love the show and use it kind of religiously every week to make the plays. Share it around with your friends and let us know. Like just said, leave some feedback.
It's tiny sample size, but our best bets every week have been going really well. Same with the locks.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Hit retweet. Share it around, please. Boost the show because I really like what we're doing here. Please check out statsinsider.com.au and check us out on Twitter at statsinsider and at Woot and Y. Till next week. Peace.